2, 3 in the morning, and these kids would be sent off to school at 7 o'clock the same morning. I mean, so how can a person preserve his health and longevity living such a unhealthy lifestyle? That's always upset me. However, my profession being teaching the traditional texts in the madaris, in the traditional Islamic institutions, being preoccupied mostly in that, so I never had a chance to really do something along these lines for the general public. So perhaps about a decade or so ago, some of my close colleagues kind of pushed me that why don't you come up with some sort of course where we can kind of have a generic mudhakara, if you will. وَذَكِّرْ فِإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Make a sort of reminder of some basic principles that might include some easy takeaways that people could leverage to improve their health in these various dimensions. So this began about, I suppose, a little over a decade ago. And after developing those, then it became quite popular. And I've been doing this in various countries in the world, all over the country as well. And I always enjoy doing it because it's good for me. And always considering myself to be the first in need of that. And then we, and all those who participate, hopefully it will be beneficial for you as well. Okay, now a little bit about the ground rules. Ground rules. Okay, number one. Maybe I can.
Yeah, I'll move that for you.
Huh?
I'll just get this. I think this is easier for you.
It's very interesting. Is that alive or is that?
More powerful.
Just turn the on button there.
How is that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Can we find out whether the ladies also are hearing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got this. What's this one?
Would you want me to turn it off?
Huh?
Do you want me to turn it off?
I mean, if it has some function.
Let's just do.
Okay, so the ground rules. First of all, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Obviously, everything that we do should have an intention. So what's the intention that we are sitting here today with? So obviously, the overriding intention of everything that we do is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let us all kind of think why we're sitting and consider the fact that, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching, hearing, aware of everything that we're doing inwardly and outwardly. And so we want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with this gathering. And what is the specific takeaway that we want, and how would we specifically be seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this particular gathering? And that is by the acquisition of ilm al-nafiya. The Prophet ﷺ used to ask that, may Allah grant me ilm al-nafi. And he used to seek refuge from knowledge that didn't benefit. So knowledge that doesn't benefit either in and of itself is it not beneficial. For example, the knowledge of black magic. It's a knowledge, but it's not beneficial. It's detrimental. Right? So knowledge of Quran and Sunnah and khuluq and all of these kind of things is very beneficial. However, a knowledge might be beneficial, but the person who acquires it doesn't benefit from it. That's also like in Surah Al-Jumu'ah. كَمَثَلِ الْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا. Like the donkey who carries a lot of books. May Allah save us, We have so many books around us and at our disposal, but are we actually benefiting from that in terms of internalizing and the manifestation of that knowledge, in our personal practice? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us, number one, knowledge which is in and of itself beneficial, and secondly, that we actually benefit from it. May Allah make it easy. And ma tawfiqi illa billah. And none of that will happen without the permission and order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Full attention. Remove distractions. So full attention means physically and internally. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَذِكْرَ لِمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ قَلْبٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that this Quran, it is a dhikr, it's a reminder. And it'll be an admonition for those people who have a heart. Well, don't everyone have a heart? So we have hearts, but sometimes we utilize them, or they're being utilized for their purpose, or something they're not. لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا. So people have hearts, and they have minds, and they have intelligence, but they don't use it. So we need to not only be physically present, but also be present internally. In other words, let's disconnect ourselves from all other mental occupations, considerations, worries, and concern ourselves with what is being presented to us today. Okay? And then, of course, the biggest distraction are these phones, So we want to ensure that our phones are out of sight, out of mind, right? So I see that we have many phones which are in sight. So if we don't have a need for them in the activity that we're engaged in, so put them on silent or turn them off and put them away. Jazakumullah khair. Also, it will be to our benefit to be taking notes. Now, generally what we do in longer sessions, so we have a small manual which also has a place for notes, and we provide all that, but today we don't have that. So I would suggest that have a pencil and paper. Do we have, is there any possibility we can give paper and pencils to people? See if we have that, yeah. And I would like to emphasize, I'm saying, and I'm not saying, okay, take notes on your phone. Okay, I mean, I don't have a problem with that, that's okay, it's not, But, think about this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He swears by the qalam. وَالْقَلَمِ وَمَا يَسْطُرُونَ. He doesn't swear by the iPad. Or He doesn't swear by, Chat GPT. He swears by the qalam. And actually, a very interesting hadith mentions that the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created was the qalam, and told it to write. And it wrote everything that's going to happen in the universe forever. It's subhanAllah. What kind of a qalam, and how did it write? La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illahu. So there is a sir, there is a secret, mysterious, blessing in the pen and in writing. And it is something uniquely human. You won't see animals writing. We are the only animals that can do that. So, unfortunately, we're losing the skill. Our youngsters, even the younger generations, past my generation, people, you see the handwriting and it's like terrible. And spelling, forget about that, because we have all these apps to correct our spelling, so we're losing these skills. And that would be a great loss if we lose that. So, do take notes, but don't get carried away taking notes so that you miss out what's going on. So that's also, there's a balance that's necessary for that. Okay, questions, comments, disagreements. I want to share something. Of course, this is an interaction section. We'll have plenty of interaction. But if it gets too, out of context, and generally the questions, there's two things about questions. Number one is that we will give some time actually to welcome questions, and we'll try and answer those as far as possible. However, the thing about questions is that many times the answer to our question is just 2 minutes down the road. In other words, what I'm questioning, or what I'm not clear about, the clarification is just about to come if we're just patient. So if we're patient for a while, generally our questions will be answered in the dialogue which is going to come. If that doesn't happen, then by all means, let's ask questions. Now, questions should be pertaining to the content that we are engaged in. Otherwise, the opening the floor for all types of discussions, that's not going to serve us here, because we have a lot of material that we would like to cover as much as possible. So we must not diverge, far away from the. So if we have questions regarding the material, if we have other questions, then we can perhaps in free time we can perhaps look into that. Okay. And similarly with that, I'd like to share something. Okay, I know we've all got much to share, but as I said, if we open that and that door for so much of that, then probably we're not going to be able to complete the subject matter that is the object of the object of our gathering today. Okay. So this series, we have various dimensions, which at the end of this session, this first session, we're going to go over the kind of executive summary, if you will, of all of those particular modules that we have. But before we do that, and before we talk about the various specific domains of human health, we have what we call the entrance. Usually in Islamic sciences, we have what we call al-madkhal. In other words, entering into a particular discipline, we want to know some, there's some prelude to that. So the prelude to this session are two questions, which I'm going to ask you, and you give me your answers to those questions. And that is, number one, why am I here? When I say why am I here, I don't mean why am I here in this room, in the masjid, but why am I here in this world? What is the purpose of my life? And I would like to give you a couple of minutes and just write down what you think your purpose of life is, whatever that might be. There's no right, wrong answer. I mean, whatever person thinks that's his purpose, and that's what it is. Okay, and then we're going to have a little discussion on this particular topic. So I'll give you a couple of minutes. What am I don't want a PhD thesis, I just want a sentence, if possible, or a phrase. The main object of your life. Okay, I will ask later. First, write it down. Can you write it down? Do you have pencil and paper?
No, I just...
Okay, so you can write down yours with your... Is that your father?
my friend's dad.
Your, huh?
My friend's dad.
Your friend?
My friend.
And you're his son? Okay, good. So you can all share that paper, no issues. Do we have a microphone in the ladies section? Can they share also with us? Do you have a policy regarding that also? How does that work? Because ladies, you will be participating. We're very concerned about the ladies' participation, so we want your interaction here. So that could be of two ways. One is that if they have a microphone, then they can, physically, or if they want to send a message, it's also possible. But we do want their participation, which is generally much more insightful than the participation of the men. Their questions and their answers and their observations are generally more insightful than the men. So we can have a little friendly and Rouhani competition. So how is that going to work with the ladies?
We need to wait for Imam Saad. He will arrange something.
He'll arrange something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Imam Saad.
All right. In the meantime, ladies, be ready for that, inshallah. Some way or the other, we'll have that mechanism set up. Okay. So, who would like to share? Who would like to share? Yeah. What's your purpose of life?
Serve Allah to the best of your ability and as much as you
To serve Allah to the best of your ability and the best you can. Wow. Wonderful. Okay, anyone else? Yes, in the back.
Fulfill the hukuk of Allah and the other beings.
I'm sorry?
To fulfill the responsibilities that we have on Allah Ta'ala and the other beings that we are
Full the responsibilities that we have towards Allah. I don't think on Allah.
All
That
the
doesn't
other
sound right.
beings.
Yeah, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
And the other beings like the father or children or nature or whatever.
and towards His creation. Is that something like that? Wonderful. Very good. Anyone else? Yeah.
I did, as a young kid, did ask myself this very question, correct?
Yeah.
And then we hear the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ
Yeah.
الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. And to me, that was this
Well, that is
final
exactly
answer.
it, which we're going to see very soon. Okay, do we have any? Wonderful. Jazakallah khair. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to be like, of course, there's always a path and struggle on the religious level to become a very strong religiously, but I'm believing also to be a strong Muslim because the work is ibadah as well, to become a strong Muslim in the community.
Maybe I can just read that. So for the sake of the ladies also, so they can
Yeah.
hear that and others.
Sure.
To be a stronger Muslim by what? What was this? Say?
He's a doctor, so his the handwriting.
Yeah, you can't read a doctor.
By-
I could be a doctor also.
By impacting life of others.
Huh?
By impacting.
By impacting life of others. Okay.
Coming from a strong place.
Life after coming from a strong place. Very good.
Yeah, to the family, to my circle. And
To your
the
family, to
community,
your
the
circle, to be
community.
beneficial to other people. Wonderful.
The mic has been given to the sister side.
Yeah.
So they can.
So they
speak.
can.
They can
Okay.
speak.
Nobody has a problem with that? They don't have a problem with that?
No, no
Some places they do. It's okay. However you, I don't have a problem with that. I welcome that. Okay. So let's hear from the sisters. Let's hear what ladies have to say. We've had 3, 4 from the men. Let's hear from the ladies. What's our purpose of life? Can we speak up a bit?
You have to turn on the mic.
You have to turn on the mic.
To worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and please Him.
To worship Allah and please Him.
To worship Allah and please Him. Wow. Straight into the point. Wonderful. Maybe another one? Don't be shy. La haya fil ilm. There's no shyness in deen and knowledge. You know, the ladies during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they would come and ask amazing questions. One lady, she came to the Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, you know, we're always hearing about the men. They do this, they do that. So what about women? What do they get? You know, we look after the men. If it wasn't for us, these men wouldn't be going on jihad. They wouldn't be going to the masjid. They would, you know. So what about us? What do we get? So the Prophet said, did you hear ever such a wonderful question? He really appreciated that, you know. And then he said, look, everything your menfolk, they do, because of the fact that you're supporting their activities, so anything that they do, you get a part of that. You know, you get an equal share of that. You know? So this is part of our tradition. Somehow we got kind of off the track in so many ways, you know, but yeah, so this is our tradition. Okay, so would any lady like to mention something?
We have the same answer to worship and please Him.
They have the same answer.
The same answer. Muttafiq alayh, yeah? Well, that's fine. Wonderful. Okay. Now, before we talk a little bit about that, 2 things. Number 1, as my brother, what is your name, brother? Muhammad. My brother from Morocco, he says, since I was a little boy, I was thinking about this. And those who were here last night, as you heard, that I had been thinking about this since I was a little boy as well. And not only that, but I think everybody in the world, it's human nature that one starts thinking about, what is my purpose of life? And one thing is that we've been told, or we heard something from the scholars or from our parents, or when we go to, maktab, they tell us something, and okay. But does it really have an impact? So people start thinking. I'll give you an example. In Karachi, several years ago, there was an old friend of mine that I happened to meet in a masjid. So when he met me, he said, Hashim, I was just thinking about you and I wanted to talk to you about something. I said, oh yeah, what's that? He said, actually my daughter is in the States and she's doing her PhD in psychology. And she has some issues. And when we study Freudian psychology and things like that, there will be issues, right? So I was kind of prepared to that, yeah. And so he said, could you talk to her and maybe, help her sort out her issues? I said, okay, I can try, if I can be of any help. So I told him that this is my email, prepare an email and send it to me and let's see what the issue is. Anyway, she wrote to me and she had explaining this and that. And then I was traveling the next day somewhere, and so I wrote back to her that, okay, I'm going to be traveling for the next week or so, and when I get back, then we can actually have a discussion on all these things. But in the meantime, I just have a question for you, and based on that, based on your answer to that question, then we'll open our discussion. And that was the question. I've been asking this question all my life, and I continue to ask it to myself and to others. Okay. So she wrote back very interestingly that if you had asked me this question 10 years ago, I could have easily answered you. But now, I don't know. That's pretty awesome. Now I don't know why, because she's in an environment where all of her beliefs are being, questioned and shaken and, like, okay. So one thing is we just, heard something and we continue to sort of regurgitate it or just, say it because we heard it. Another is that we really contemplate and come to grips with that. Another interesting thing about this question, even though the purpose of everything around us, we tend to know automatically. For example, the purpose of this door handle. Everybody knows that it's for opening the door. You just turn it and you walk in, you walk out. What's the purpose of the light? Everybody knows that. What's the purpose of this, this IT mechanism? What's the purpose of ChatGPT, for that matter? It's pretty straightforward. Now, the most amazing thing is that this man who actually is the architect of much of this stuff that he understands the purpose for, when you ask him, what's your purpose? He's dumbfounded. Particularly if he doesn't have our background, he's not grounded. So this is not something that the human intelligence can actually, in and of itself, perceive and identify. You can't do it. I'll give you another example, and I'll give you an example of that. So after I became a Muslim and I came back to America, in 1972, so as I said, those who were here, I was born and raised in my childhood in Cleveland. And then ultimately, we moved to California. So after becoming a Muslim, and I came back to California, then I wanted to come and visit my cousins and my, relatives that I grew up with in my childhood, and tell them about this great treasure that I've come into, about Islam and all that. So I went to my grandmother. I stayed with my grandmother, and so that side of the family, they're all Jewish, but they're basically, secular Jews. They don't really follow much of anything, just identify with that. So anyway, I asked my cousins, particularly my eldest guy, and by the way, I have 3 cousins who are all geniuses. I mean, from the childhood, these kids were just known to be, like in Harvard, they were top of the class. So I mean, we're not talking about, we're talking about very, very intelligent, very, very brilliant young minds. And so at that point, my cousin, I believe he's probably in high school at that time. So I asked him, I said, what's your purpose of life? kind of scratched his head. I don't know. And this is actually because we're very fortunate, because as Muslims, we've been instructed in this, which we're going to see very soon. But if you haven't been instructed by your Creator, what's your purpose? Because we didn't create ourselves. We are created by a Creator. He created us for a purpose. And if He doesn't tell us what that is, there's no way for us to know that. The human mind cannot ascertain that. This is an amazing thing. It's something so basic and fundamental. But the human mind cannot come to grips with this. That's why we have these philosophers, who are not grounded in some prophetic tradition. They're just lost. They just lose it. Until, the recent philosophy, they came up with this, well, there is no purpose. Even they came up with these radicals that say, actually, there isn't really anything. It's all figments of our imagination. There's no reality. It's a long discussion. But it's amazing how far off the track human beings will go on these basic fundamental realities. So what is the purpose of it? Now, the next thing that we're going to be using a term which I call paradigm inversion. You probably heard paradigm shift, right? But I want to use a new sort of term which is called inversion. One is shifting it around, another is inversion. Okay? And in my short life and observation, I've come to this conclusion that the world basically runs on a two-party system. And I don't mean the Democrats and the Republicans. Basically, we have what I term as the materialists and the Ubudiyyists. In other words, there's people who their foundation of everything is the material, the seen world. And there's another group, albeit a small group, but they base everything on a different premise, a metaphysical premise, the unseen premise, that their basic fundamental of life is Ubudiyyah, which we're going to explain in detail shortly. Now, to kind of graphically illustrate this difference of paradigms, so we have this material paradigm, which kind of, to give a gross graphic image of it, I would put it like this. So what do you see here?
Upside down tree.
Yeah?
An upside down tree with
An upside down
in the
tree.
background.
Yeah, and everything. What about the building? Yeah?
The building's also upside down.
It's also upside down. I know it's difficult to understand what's going on. Anyway, that's what we have here, right? Everything is upside down. Then we have another paradigm which I call the Ubudiyyah paradigm. Now, those who are familiar with the Arabic language or are from Arab-speaking countries, then this is a very common word. In Urdu, I don't know why, but somehow this word is not used in the common Urdu language. They have ibadat, and abdiyat, sometimes you'll hear that. Ibadat, you hear that a lot. So it's connected with that, but we'll just describe this in more detail. It's basically the concept that I'm the slave of Allah and my life is a life of slavery and obedience. Now that looks like this. What happened? Everything
in the picture.
in its right position. Okay. Here's what our Creator, in one sentence, he explains why He has created us. This is it. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I have not created the jinn and the mankind except for my Ubudiyyah. And we're going to have to explain this because there's no English word that even comes close to explaining this. Some say, for my worship. Well, what do you mean by worship? That's a pretty abstract, statement, because it means many different things. Like in show business, the people would say, we worship, he's our idol. Really, it's interesting, right? That's their sanam. These musicians who are like the most far off people from reality that there are, And so people are worshiping these people. They say, we worship so-and-so, he's our idol. My God. Then where is he taking you, It's really strange. So this concept that worship it doesn't give not from far and not from near. La min qarib wa la min ba'id, as we say in Arabic. So, therefore, I've said, except for my worship, servitude, submission. So actually, let's go back to this word, illa liya'budun, okay? Here we have, in Arabic language, a little Arabic 101 here. So we have lam. Now, lam, it has many, purposes in the Arabic language. This lam, we call it lam al-ta'lil. In other words, it indicates a purpose for something. Illa. The reason for being, or the reason for something to exist, or the purpose, etc. So this is basically saying, for the purpose, I've not created the jinn and the men, okay, except, and this is what we call nafi wa istithna. So there's no purpose for the creation of these jinn and these men, except, meaning there's only one. So this illustrates, I've created them for one purpose. But if you say, I have not created you for anything except, so that means what? It means everything, forget about everything else. This is emphasizing the fact that this is the one purpose for the creation, which is what? Ya'budun. This is a verb. It's not a noun. Therefore, worship is a noun. So already it's off the chart because this is a verb, which gives a whole different, big picture than a noun. And sometimes, a noun is used in the Quran, sometimes a verb is, and there's specific reasons for that. That's why when you read in the books of commentary, in what we call the knowledge of balagha, rhetoric, it's extremely important because one little harf, one little letter can change the whole content, so the sort of nuance surrounding the whole thing. So here we have a verb, ya'budun. And it's what we call in the Arabic language fi'l mudari'a, which means the continuous tense. Now, continuously, until, or whenever. Continuous. So we have been created to be continuously engaged in something, which is called Ubudiyyah. Now what is Ubudiyyah? So a very simple way to understand this is we look at the root, and the root comes from abd, the abida, to be in slavery. Now in America that has a very bad connotation, and naturally, understandably so. And being a slave to a creation is the maximum humility that there is. But being slave to the creator of the universe is the highest of all honors. And therefore, we find the Prophet ﷺ, when he is addressed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the most august of positions, he is addressed with this title, Subhanalladhi asra bi abdi. The Prophet ﷺ had many unique characters, but the unique prophetic position or juxtapositioning with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you will, is the night of Isra and Mi'raj. This has never happened to any prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kallama Musa taklima. He spoke directly to Musa alayhi salam, and the prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would speak directly to the prophets. But to call a prophet from the earth up to the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is something no other prophet has experienced. So in this particular juncture, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this with the title of Abd. Subhanallah, the Abda, exalted, pure, and exalted above all human conception, is the one who called his slave. Alhamdulillah, alladhi anzala al-furqan ala abdihi. When he mentions the sending of the Quran, he is Abd. When we say the kalima shahada, what do we say? وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا. Abduhu wa Rasuluhu. We don't just say Rasuluhu. We first say Abd, because that is the Risala. Rasul means a messenger. A messenger comes with a message. What's the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Al-Abdiyah, Al-Ubudiyyah. How to live the life of a slave of Allah. That was the message. He talked about it, he demonstrated it, his whole life was dedicated to this concept. Right? So, Ya'budun, so this means that it's a continuous recognition and acknowledgement of the fact that we're Allah's slaves, which means that we're going to have a continuous connection with Allah. Therefore, وَلَذِكْرَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. So we have to always be in the remembrance of Allah. He's always watching us. He's always seeing us. We are always His slave, whether we recognize that or not, willingly or unwillingly. We came into the world not of our own accord. We won't leave the world of our own accord, according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's order. And everything in between, nothing is happening. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. Nothing's going to happen. Nobody's going to do anything except Allah wills it. It's all under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan. So this, obviously, if that's the case, and it is, this has a huge scope. Very huge scope. So it takes on, as we mentioned yesterday, it takes on every activity that we engage in. It's not just in the masjid, it's not just in our ibadat, it's in everything that we do. So if we want to define this ubudiyyah, this is a possibility. We can define ubudiyyah as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's obedience and servitude out of His love and reverence. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's obedience and servitude out of His love and reverence. We're going to explain a little bit more about this. Okay? Because one thing is you can, you can be forced and you can willingly obey someone. Right? So, before we talk about this a little bit more, there's three terms that every Muslim knows about. Not even every Muslim, probably at this point in time, most of the people on the planet, whether even they're not, they've heard these terms, but we need to ensure that we understand what these terms really mean. So number one is Islam. Yeah, Islam, everybody knows. But what actually does Islam mean? It's just a title. By the way, Islam, look at this, it's quite different than the names of all these other religions, even though there's only actually one religion, and it's Islam. Why? We're not like Christianity. I think this is off. What happened? Yeah. Okay. Christianity, for example, nisbatan ila Isa alayhi salam. It's, those who, are supposed to be somehow connected to Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. But Islam is not connected to any specific individual in and of its name. Judaism, Judah. It's either regarding, Judah, who was one of the children of Ishaq, or of Ishaq, Sayyidina Israel, Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam. Or it might be the land which was named after Judah. So it's either a person again or a land. Islam isn't a person or a land. Hinduism, Buddhism, and so all these things are connected to some either person or a place. But Islam is not a person or a place, is it? So what is it? Yeah.
It's a religion.
Yeah, but what is the meaning of Islam?
Surrender.
As a word, in the Arabic language, what does it mean? Huh?
Submission. Surrender.
Submission. Surrender. The name of our religion is submission. And what does a slave do? He submits to his master. Now, if we mentioned, we said, what? Out of his love and reverence. Okay? Submission to Allah. Now, is Jibreel, and by the way, we have this very important ayat in the Quran. We need to understand this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, La ikraha fi deen. There's no compulsion in deen. Meaning what? Jibreel alayhi salam is not going to come down with a AK-47, put it at your head, look, become a Muslim or else. In fact, this is illegal. We cannot force anybody to accept Islam. This is impossible. That's why, you know, this Israel-Palestine conflict, as they call it a conflict, we don't have a conflict, they have a conflict. The Jewish people never had a problem in Muslim society. The first thing the Prophet ﷺ did when he came to Medina politically was what? Make an alliance with the Jewish people. You're the people who are the previous recipients of Allah's message, and I mean, you should be able to understand what I'm talking about, and so let's forge an alliance. Now, they broke their alliance and they were treacherous, and the rest is history. But most of them. But otherwise, even when in Europe, when the white Europeans, when the Jewish people, you know, were in Europe, they had a big problem because of the fact that the Christians always had a problem with Jews because they claimed that they killed our prophet or our son of God or our God himself, right? So they always had a problem in Europe, but they never had a problem in the Muslim world. They were protected in the Muslim world. They pay their jizya, you're protected. So if you go to the Orthodox Jews, they'll tell you, we would like to see the Muslims get their khilafat back because that was our golden era. Because we had the best time of our history in that time. Right? So there's no compulsion. Nobody was compelled. The Christians were not compelled. The Jews were not compelled. Hindus were not compelled. Buddha. Nobody was compelled to accept Islam. Moreover, you were invited to observe. Muslims would live, if they lived according to Islam, that would be sufficient for most of the people to accept Islam. So there's no compulsion in the religion. Now once you enter the club, like you enlist in the army and then say, well, I think I have second thoughts. Sorry, folks. No. You join the club, you're going to stick with the club. But think about joining the club, because once you join, you're in, full in. So therefore, there is no compulsion to enter into Islam. But once you've entered, now you're compelled to obey. So submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to be by force. And even if, and it doesn't mean that in our history we didn't have tyrants that forced people, there was never forced conversions. There was. We had tyrants, and we have some black eras in our history. It wasn't all roses. But nevertheless, for the most part, we have a much better historical record than other communities in that regard. Okay. So, how does this submission take place? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't force us. He gave us what we call aql. He gave us intelligence. He gave us cognition that is unique, and no other creature has that kind of cognition. And with that cognition, we were given that primarily for what? Primarily to use it and ponder over the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we were talking about last night. Inna fi khalq as-samawati wal ard, you know, the skies and the earth, wa fi anfusikum afala tubsirun, within yourselves and all the things happening in your body. It's amazing. So when we look at all of this creation and we ponder over it and we use our cognitive ability, we should come to this conclusion that there is a creator who has total control over everything. And in so doing, we also consider the fact that we have been given so much. When tu'addu ni'matallahi la tuhsuha. If you will try and count the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll never be able to do it. So this creates this, on the one hand, this awe of the Creator and his capacity to create and control a universe without us and within us. At the same time, so many bounties that every one of us, every moment, the computer systems of the world could not count them. Right? So what happens is, or what is supposed to happen, through these senses that Allah has given us, we are supposed to recognize Allah and out of love and reverence, submit. Is that understood? Therefore, when we take this name Islam, what's your Islam? We take it very lightly, like Islam is a religion. I mean, my dad and granddad, they were Muslims, so I'm Muslim. No, it's not like that. Therefore, you look in Surah Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Sayyidina Ibrahim, إِذْ قَالَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ أَسْلِمْ. This is amazing. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he's one of the greatest prophets of all time, the father of all the monotheistic religions. And he is a prophet, he's a Rasul, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Aslim, enter into Islam. He already is in Islam. So what's the meaning? Continue. Go deeper into it. Right? So Ibrahim didn't reply, well, yeah, I'm already Muslim. Okay, what else? He said, Aslamtu li Rabbi. Yes, Aslamtu. I will continue. And that whole next couple of pages, see how many times Islam is mentioned. وَصَابِيَ Ibrahim, مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ. And all this, وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ. Islam, Muslimun. So submission is the name of our religion because it's the reality. So it's not a simple thing, it's not simply a philosophy, it's not religion, whatever that means. So it's not a philosophy, it's not a theory, it is not a conception, it is actually a kayfiyah. It is a condition of mind and heart. That the heart and the mind submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then so whatever I need to do it. So if we understand Islam, now what is a Muslim?
submit myself.
Okay, so if we really want to understand this, we need to understand it from the linguistic point of view. So what part of speech is it?
It's an adjective to the noun.
Ism fa'il.
So again?
It's what we call ism fa'il. It's an active participle. Active participle. Doing. In other words, a Muslim is the one who does Islam. So you can't say, well, I'm a cultural Muslim. This always gets me. I'm a cultural Muslim. What do you mean by that? Does the culture submit or doesn't submit? Or how does that work? I don't know, it gets me. In Pakistan, we hear that a lot. I'm a cultural Muslim. Maybe maybe you could say you're a cultural something else, but being a cultural Muslim, it has nothing to do with culture. It has everything to do with submission. There's no such thing as a cultural Muslim. You're a Muslim or you're not, Right? So, a Muslim is the one who submits to Allah. Now here, we have a problem, or there could be a problem here. Because, even if we look at ourselves, which one of us can claim that we 100% submit as we're supposed to the orders of Allah? We do everything Allah's telling us to do. We're aloof from all of the prohibitions that Allah's prohibited. Who can say that? Nobody in their right mind, I think. Right? So we have a problem. So does that mean I'm a Muslim or not? It becomes even a bigger problem when we have someone, for example, like I mentioned, my Moroccan friends, they were pretty off the track in terms of, behavior, but, they wanted me to become Muslim. And, in the party, they're all drunk, but you say, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So clearly, there's some concept of submission, So, to understand that, because we have a problem here. We got some of these weirdos who, you don't pray, you don't do this or something, your head comes off, right? So this is clearly, the height of ignorance. But if we don't understand this concept, then, ignorant people might, go for that, So, another analogy, so we might understand this a little bit better. Suppose we have a fellow, and he's in the hospital. In fact, he's in the ICU. And he's being fed intravenously. He's got, tubes to, for his breathing. I mean, the guy is just totally incapacitated. He's no use for his family. He can't even serve himself. He can't even wash himself. He can't talk. He can't do anything. But his heart is beating, he's alive. So this fellow is, for all intents and purposes, useless. So suppose the family, look, we're paying a lot of money to keep this guy alive, and he's of no use. He can't serve himself. He can't serve us, the family. He was, he can't work in the job. He's not contributing to the community. So why we waste? Let's just bury the guy. Come on, just get rid of him. Can we do that? And if we did that, then what? Then what would that make us? Murderers. That's murder. Whether he's totally useful. We have another fellow, he's mashallah CEO of his company, he's star performer, he's active in the community, he's great with his family, he himself is in great shape. He's alive and he's alive. But there's a huge difference between the quality of life. So similarly, in the standard of Islam and submission, the quality and depth and totality of submission is going to be, as we say, tafawut. There's going to be, there's going to be great diversity in terms of who's going to do more and who's going to do less. So there's going to be people who are, mashallah, and it starts from this ICU type of guy. The minimum thing is someone submits by saying this kalima and believing in it. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan. He doesn't do anything except that. So there is a minimal level of submission, at least the acknowledgement is a submission of the mind and the heart that, okay, I accept that. That alone is enough to get him ultimately into Jannah. He might have a tough time on the way, but he will ultimately get into Jannah, inshallah, if that was acceptable. And then we have the top of the chart, which is Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the benchmark, which nobody can reach that, but you have a goal that no one can actually. So Muslim can be all these. So we aspire to be as close to the benchmark as possible. But nevertheless, a person who just has this kalima, he doesn't pray, he doesn't fast, doesn't do anything, but he also he acknowledges that he's supposed to do that. Now if somebody says, for example, I believe in Allah, I believe in His Rasul, but I don't believe in Salat. I don't think we have to pray. I don't think we have to fast. Hajj, what's that? Why are people wasting their money and going there? That actually means that statement means you didn't believe in Allah and His Rasul. Because Allah says, you have to make Hajj, you have to pray, aqim as-salat, and so forth. So therefore, if you, as we say in Arabic, inkar shay ma'loom fi ad-din bid-darura. This is something that everybody knows is totally 100% that this is a must in religion. Then if you say, no, it's not, then sorry, you're out. Otherwise, just having this kalima and acknowledging that deen is as it is, whether I practice it or not, still that person is a Muslim. Okay, we need to understand that, okay. And we also need to understand another important thing, is that wherever we happen to be in our journey towards being a better Muslim, there's always room for improvement, and we don't know where our end will be. As they say, tomorrow never knows. So we hope from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He'll continue to give us tawfiq that we can continue on our journey and leave the world as Muslim, but we don't have a surety of that. We don't have a certainty. Nobody does. So we never are certain that we are better than anybody. This is very important. Anybody can be better than me. Even the worst of humanity that we can think of, and we got a lot of them that we could name, but I'll leave that to your imagination. Anybody on this planet could ultimately get hidayah and get into Jannah. And may Allah forbid, anybody can possibly lose their iman and not make it. So we always have this, as they say, iman is between hope and fear. We'll talk about that a little more in the second session. So is that clear, everybody? Islam, Muslim, are we clear about that? Now, the last thing we need to be clear about is deen. What is deen? I know that every Muslim uses this word, but do we really understand what it means?
Way of life.
Way of life.
The law.
Well, there's a lot of ways of life out there, you know.
It is the law.
Huh?
The law.
The law.
Qanon, yeah, the law.
Well, we have a law here in the
Following
state of
command-
Virginia. Is that also what we mean here? No?
Following the command of Allah
Following the commands of Allah
and living the life how our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
and living the life of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I think we're getting closer.
The way to follow the Islam.
The way to follow Islam. Okay, suppose we say the total system of submission. Islam is a submission. Muslim is one who submits. And Deen is that whole system of submission, which has a huge scope. All activities of life, like we said yesterday. Everything that we do. How many people ate breakfast this morning?
Everybody.
Not everybody.
Unless
Some people might, somebody might be fasting, you know, so assumption which may not be grounded. Anyway, but most people ate, so everybody ate breakfast. Who ate breakfast? Okay, what intention did you make when you ate breakfast?
the need for
You were hungry, so I said, Bismillah, and ate breakfast. Most of us, I mean, myself included, that's how we generally do it. Like, how many people slept last night? Pretty much everybody, hopefully. So what intention did you make when you went to sleep? To hit the pillow and go off into the next world of rest. So that's not much difference than anybody else. I mean, everybody can do that. Christians do that, Jews do that, atheists do that, everybody does. So all people, everybody's eating, everybody's sleeping, everybody's, you know, people get married, they procreate, they do all that. Why? So the distinguishing factor between those same activities and a Muslim is that he has some particular intention for doing that. And all of those activities is engaged, there should be some connection to that overall purpose. That I've been created for a life of servitude, so how does this action become an act of servitude? An act of ibadah, or Ubudiyyah. That's the whole point. Now, let's go back to sleep. So when you go to sleep, how can we connect sleep with a life of servitude?
By saying Bismillah before you do it.
Okay, that's great. But what's the intention?
To recharge yourself.
Recharge yourself. Okay, get recharged. So are you recharging yourself?
Yeah.
You recharge yourself? Who recharges you?
The bed.
That's even more abstract. Okay. What do you think? Do you think Allah's the one recharging you actually? Like when we eat food, is the food actually recharging us? That's the modus operandi, but Allah, you know, in the last days, which look like they're coming pretty fast, when Isa alayhi salam comes, the second time, by the way, he is coming, as a Muslim, as a follower of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they're going to be surrounded, Isa alayhi salam and the people with him are going to be surrounded on Jabal al-Tur, in Palestine. Interesting. And they're not going to have any food. So what will they eat? They will say, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar. And their stomachs will be full. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need food to sustain you. He doesn't even need your tasbih. He can just say, be sustained, and you are. Angels don't have food. They don't eat. They're doing fine. Since Jibreel alayhi salam, since forever, he's been, you know, he's been carrying on without. So, we need to understand. For example, eating and drinking. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, actually we said Islam is following the order, submitting to the order. Allah says, Kulu washrabu wa la tusrifu. He gives the command, eat, drink. Not because I want to. Allah gives me the command, eat and drink. It so happens that He has given me hunger, so I like to eat. So it's a command that we like to fulfill. But fulfill it with balance. La tusrifu. Eat, drink, and not only that, think about this, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so many different things to eat and drink. Like last night, all these delicacies that we had, you know. Now, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted, He could have us like the cows. We just go out in the pasture. You've got a big lawn out here in the front. So we could, at dinner time, we could have gone out into the lawn and just grazed on some grass and come back like cows or sheep. Could have made it like that, but Allah was so kind, He gave us all these beautiful different kinds of things to eat, vegetables and fruits and different kinds of meats and things, and taught human beings, particularly our ladies, how to cook them in a beautiful way and make them delicious, right? But the whole idea is that we are eating to live this life of Ubudiyyah, because Allah orders us to eat and drink. And inshallah, if He wills to give us energy through this means to live another life, another day of life of Ubudiyyah. So that means we are going through the same motions, basically, that everybody else is, but our eating and drinking would be an act of servitude, whereas one who is not doing that is just an act of the rest of the animal kingdom. Nothing special. No, what we say, ajr, no wizard. No gain, no loss. Just filling the stomach, basically. And unfortunately, most of us Muslims, that's what we do. In the Urdu-speaking people, after they, bahut maza aa gaya, maze ki khana. This is a very delicious food, well, but that's not the point. But we've made that the point, unfortunately. So we need to, the paradigm inversion, invert that paradigm from living to eat to live. The same with sleeping. Okay, I'm just tired, so I fall down and I go to sleep. That's one. The other is that I want to live another, if Allah gives me the tawfiq to live another day of servitude, and through this means of rest and recuperation, Allah may give me added strength and ability to live another life of servitude, right? So everything we do, and when we go to our work, right? For example, you're a physician, doctor?
Orthodontist.
Huh?
Dentist.
Dentist, okay. So, Nabi Sallallahu says, Khairun nas anfa'uhum lin-nas. The best of the people who benefit the people. So I'm going to work every day with this intention that, oh Allah, I want to benefit your creation. And since you charge for that, you also, one of the creation is you. So there's no harm in that. This is interesting that the Sahaba, they're also, the Muhajirin, they're all basically business people. But their intention of business was not simply for profit. Their intention was to benefit. And since the nature of transactions, interactions, that everybody benefits, so the seller, the buyer, everybody gets a benefit, if that's their intention. Okay, so all activities of life and all roles in life. This is very important, because what happens is that we have our religious life and we have what we generally call our dunyawi life. Once there was a young fellow, I had a female student in Karachi. So her husband came to meet me. So I asked him, what do you do? So he said, well, I do work of dawah, and I do he told about all the religious things he was engaged. I said, okay, but I mean, how do you earn and how do you... So he kind of lowered his head and kind of like, you would get the idea that he's kind of ashamed to say, well, I have a business. I said, well, so what's wrong with that? And by the way, why have you said all these religious things and then you say, this is what I do for the dunya? My dunyawi, yes, that's what he said. This is my dunyawi, mashghala, my worldly activities, and kind of like saying it in kind of an ashamed fashion. Why did you make this bifurcation? This is my deen and this is my dunya. Why didn't you make that dunya your part of your deen? And you're like, well, I mean, what do you mean? So we've lost this concept. The early Muslims, everything they did, inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mati lillahi rabbil alamin. All my activities, everything I'm engaged, it's supposed to be for Allah subhanahu. So even that, we're going to the work where we have a shop, or we have a business or a trade or a service or whatever it is. So there's intentions to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through that. And there's so many sub-intentions that we can have here. Number one, for example, it should be, when we should have a trade or a business that actually benefits people. It shouldn't be something that hurts people. That's why if we're in business, are we selling things or we give services that actually benefit people, or it's hurting them, you know? So that's one. The other is that, okay, through this business, I'm also earning halal rizq. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, talab al-halal farida, ba'd al-farida. It's a compulsory act after the other compulsory acts. Like salat, like so much. So a person, and also it's mentioned, the person who goes out seeking halal rizq is like the mujahid fi sabilillah. It's a kind of jihad. But that's going to happen when we have an intention. And we perceive it as such. We just go with an empty mind and it's going to be like everybody else. And therefore we find our businesses and our services and we're doing just like everybody else. We're not benefiting ourselves really and not others, unfortunately. So we need to that, again, paradigm inversion. We need to invert that. Because that's how the rest of the people are doing it, so we just kind of follow along with them. But no, we don't follow. We are leaders, not followers. It's very important. We are here to lead people, show them a better way of doing things, the right way of how to do things as a human in servitude of Allah. We don't just follow blindly everybody else. You got that? Kids, you got that? Very important. Children, you know, we go to the school and everybody's doing this and that, so we just follow along?
No.
Huh?
We're the leaders.
No, we don't. We show them a better way. They might laugh at us, they might this, but that's okay. They laughed at the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. You know, they called him a magician, they called him mad, they called him crazy. You know, they did all kinds of things. But he perceived, and ultimately, he was victorious. And we will be as well, inshallah. So all roles in life also. So whether that's our life, our role in life, we have various roles in life, by the way. And we should identify the various roles that we have to ensure that we are performing in those roles according to the concept of Ubudiyyah. So I am a salik ilallah, I'm someone who is in my journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm perhaps a father, a husband, a wife, a mother, a teacher, a businessman, a neighbor, a relative. We have many roles in life. So actually we need to identify those roles because all of those roles have orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connected to them. And we need to ensure that at least we are performing to the minimum standard that Islam requires us in all those roles. Is that clear, everyone? Allah give us all tawfiq. Now, the tricky thing is balance. That's the mushkil. Somebody just asked me, who asked me yesterday, was, you know, how do we plan? How do we balance between family and... So this is always the tricky thing to do. Something very interesting. How many of you are married? Okay. So for the married men, suppose we have a questionnaire that we're going to send to your wives. How do you rate your husband from 1 to 10? Okay, and I'm assuming probably you have one wife, right? Okay. So how many of you are sure that your wife is going to give you a number 10? You know, top of the... Not many, huh? Including me.
Never.
Okay. Now, so we're having a problem getting a high rating and we only have one wife. The Prophet ﷺ, ultimately had 9 wives. That was peculiar to the Prophet, and there's a lot of discussion why that was, and it's very amazing actually. Nonetheless, 9 wives, if you had sent that same questionnaire to all those 9 wives of Rasulullah, what rate would they have given him? No need for discussion, right? 10 plus, or put some extra zeros on that, right? Now, think about this. This to me, if you think about this, I think that's enough miracle to prove that this is Rasulullah. Who can do this? A person has 9 wives and he's getting a 10 out of 10 rating from all of them. So what else could he find time to do after that? I mean, how can he do that? That's in and of itself. is an impossibility. But no, that's not all he does. He's a Rasul, he's Nabi, he's leader, he's the commander-in-chief, he's a neighbor, he's a relative, he's a father, he's all these roles. And he's performing perfectly in all of them. And balancing them all. And actually, when you read books of Sirah and how the Prophet lived his life, it was very non-stressy. I mean, if there was a battle, that's pretty stressy, But I mean, otherwise, day-to-day activities of the Prophet, it was a very organic, beautiful life that he lived. At least a third up to a half of his night was with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then Salat al-Fajr, after Fajr, he would talk to his companions. Anybody had a dream, he would explain that or give them some sort of instructions, and then remain in the dhikr of Allah and tilawat al-Quran, set up into shuruq, then go back to home. Did we have anything in the home? If he had something, then, which was not very often, then he would have something to eat. If he didn't have anything to eat, no problem. Okay, so I'll fast. Right? Then come back, have a looking after family affairs or any other affairs that, his companions would perhaps have, and then he would have a rest. And then after Dhuhr, he would also maybe address his companions, and then go out and look after the affairs of his ummah, maybe patching up a dispute among people, or this or that, or some wahi would come and he would instruct it, And then after Asr, he would go to all of his wives. All of them equally. Between Asr and Maghrib, he would go to all of them, and then he would end up with the wife that he was going to spend the night with, and then he would have it, and this is how his routine. I mean, subhanAllah. It's a beautiful life, beautiful organic way of life. Look at our life. I got no time for my family, I got no time for my wife, I got no time for my kids. So what are you doing? So if we are following the way of Rasulullah, and we understand the idea of prioritization, and of course, if we have to have so much stuff in our lives, gadgets, extra clothing, extra furniture, extra decor, extra vacations, extra this, so much stuff, then you have to pay for all that stuff. Yeah? And how are you going to pay for this stuff? We're going to have to work more. So this is the paradox. So we think we're going to enjoy life more, but what happens is we end up destroying ourselves more, trying to get that money for all that stuff and those, those means of what we perceive as being means of enjoyment, and we end up having no time. We need to work hard so that we can save up our money for our retirement and for our children. In the meantime, they totally drain themselves and they totally destroy their health and their mental, their mental well-being, etc. And so they end up destroying their own lives, and then children forget it. They don't even know their children yet. So this is the modern lifestyle. And what happened was we lost this one concept of balance. And also that balance is not only in all these roles, but also in our pursuit of the next world and the necessary pursuit of this world. We live in this world. We eat, we drink, we need a shelter, etc. So we have needs in this world. But if we look at our life in this world as the Prophet ﷺ described it most eloquently, "Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib." Be in this world like you're a stranger. And we are. We're strangers here, particularly in this day and age. Particularly if you're a Muslim, you're a stranger, which is actually good for us because we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to think we live here all the time. We're not living here all the time. We're here for a very short period of time and then we leave. Okay? Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib aw abidu sabil. Be in this world like you're a stranger or someone traveling on the path. You're traveling on the turnpike. Oh, what a nice place. Let's build a mansion over here. Let's have a swimming pool and a tennis. You're just going to be here for half an hour. I mean, does that make sense? What do? You get down, have a coffee and, refreshment, fill up your gas and go. Similarly in this world, we're not here for a long time. We're here for a short period of time, and how long that is, nobody knows. This might be my last day. This might be my last salat. This might be my last moment. I don't know. But ultimately, there's only one certainty in life, and that is death. which we don't want to hear about, we don't want to think about. Why not? Death, for the person who's ready for it, is the best day of his life. Like one of my friends, he says, death is the day worth living for. Yeah, you think about it. This is a preparation for the real life. This is not the real life, folks. Whatever you get, if you had the whole world and everything in it, do you think you would really be happy? You wouldn't have problems? You'd have a lot of problems. We have a lot of problems, just look at the little amount of dunya that we have and trying to control that and sort that out. Now imagine if we had the whole world and we were responsible for that. That would be... But people do it, you know. These politicians, they never cease to amaze me. I don't know what in the world motivates them to want to be like president of the United States or a governor or something like that. Not that you don't need people to do that. But why would you want to do that? If you have good sense, you wouldn't want to do that. Okay, if you were given that responsibility, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he was forced to take, he didn't want it. He said, this is Umar, this is Abu Ubaidah, take one. No, Abu Bakr is here, it's done. They weren't looking for that. But when it was given to them and they realized their responsibility, how they performed, phenomenal. So it's quite different. Okay, so this balance, all activities of life, all roles of life with balance, the life of Ubudiyyah. Allahu Akbar. So it's a lifelong learning just to learn how to balance these things, how to prioritize things and understand the reality of life. Okay, how much time do we have, by the way? Before Asr?
10 moments.
Huh?
40 minutes for
4 o'clock is Asr.
4 o'clock is Asr?
Yeah.
Oh, so we got enough time. Okay, let's do one thing. Just stand up. Just stand up. You've been sitting for a long time. I'm going to give you a little exercise that will kind of get your... So we're going to take... Ladies can do this also. Take your left elbow and you're going to raise your right leg and touch your knee with your left elbow.
Good luck.
Good luck. Yeah, I'll try as close as you can. Okay? Then do the other one. Okay? Good, huh? When you're at your office, you can do that, you know? Just stand up and people might think what happened to you, you know? But that's okay, you know? And then get them to do that too. You'll feel, you know, get your, you know? You can just do a few push-ups, you can do some squats, you can do, you know, and just, no, you really should do that. Don't sit for longer than like a half an hour, 40 minutes. We've actually done that, unfortunately, but, you know, get up, don't sit for too long. Get up and make some motion. Okay, Philip. Okay, so a recap of this whole session is basically what we're talking about. Deen is the operational application of Ubudiyyah. So basically we talked about Deen, this whole system of servitude. So that Deen is basically the operational application of Ubudiyyah, all activities, all roles, all the time. Allah give us tawfiq. Now we're going to do a little exercise, a mental exercise this time. Okay, so here is a diagram which I'm not going to explain much about. I'm just going to give you the basis of this diagram, which is kind of a rough graphic illustration of an ayat from the Holy Quran, which is, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ألم تر كيف ضرب الله مثلا كلمة طيبة كشجرة طيبة أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء. Did you not see how Allah has set forth a parable? A goodly saying as a goodly tree. A goodly saying, a beautiful Mubarak saying, which is, what is inferred here is the kalima tayyibah. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. As a goodly tree. So basically the overall concept that the Allah mentioned, this is a parable of the kalima that is in this Muslim who knows Islam, he's following Deen, this is what we described. He's like this tree. Okay, how? أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. The root is set firm into the ground, okay, and its branches are high in the sky. تُؤْتِي أُكُلَهَا كُلَّ حِينٍ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهَا. Bringing forth its fruits at all times by the leave of Allah, by the leave of its Lord. So this tree it doesn't have a season, a specific season. It's always تُؤْتِي أُكُلَهَا كُلَّ حِينٍ. All the time it's giving these wonderful fruits. And by the way, they're not one kind of fruit. There's so many different types of fruits that this tree is giving. Okay? وَيَضْرِبُ اللَّهُ الْأَمْثَالَ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets forth such type of parables for the people that they perchance may reflect. They will contemplate. They will think over it. Take the lessons that are to be learned from these parables. Okay. Now, along with this ayat, which is the basis of this diagram, there's another ayat that we need to consider. And this ayat comes two places in the Quran. Once in Surah Al Imran, and again a similar ayat in Surah Al-Jumu'ah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لقد من الله على المؤمنين إذ بعث فيهم رسولا من أنفسهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did confer a great favor upon the believers when He sent among them a messenger from among themselves. This is what this messenger did. This is you can say the JD. You understand JD? What does that mean? Job description. This is the job, this is the description of the job of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Amazing. Three things. Number one, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ. He recites to them the ayats of the Quran. And it's not just he's reciting to show them how wonderful a voice he had, and he had the most beautiful voice, al-itlaq. But that wasn't the point. The point was, he would instruct them and he would invite them to Allah. وَذَكِّرْ بِالْقُرْآنِ مَنْ يَخَافُ الْوَعِيدِ. So he would invite them, he would invite the people, the non-Muslims, he would invite them to Islam, and he would remind the believers through this recitation. So we call this tilawat al-da'wah. So in other words, it is inviting the people towards Allah through the recitation of the... So the basis of the da'wah of Rasul was not his own, whatever he thought. It was basically, as he was instructed, to remind them, invite them through the medium of the Quran. So first of all, reading to them the ayats of the Quran, inviting them to Allah by that means. Number two, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, purifying them. Tazkiyah, tarbiyah. Human beings, they have these qualities. Some of these qualities are praiseworthy, like generosity, like humility, like courage, like love of Allah, love of Rasul, and so forth. And some of them are not so nice, like jealousy, greed, anger, love of the world, etc. So, purifying people from these bad qualities and replacing them with beautiful qualities. So, purifying them from these detrimental qualities and replacing them with, through tarbiyah, the good qualities. So, this process of tarbiyah, tazkiyah. And then lastly, thirdly, and teaching them the scripture and wisdom. يُعَلِّمُ الْكِتَابِ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. The do's, the don'ts, halal, haram, sharia. How to, right? How do we pray? How do we transact? How do we live a life of, with our families? How do we behave, in the marketplaces, etc. All the do's and don'ts, the whole gamut of sharia. So he would teach them. Okay? Although, before that, they were definitely in manifest error. And before that, they had no clue how to live their lives, basically. And we're the same way. And that's why we have so much big, huge, unsolvable problems in the world today, because who can solve these problems? Nobody. And every time it's like quicksand. The more we struggle, in the way that we struggle with our own, ideas. I think is a big deal now. I think. So what? So I think, we're just going deeper and deeper into the quicksand. So, if we want to get out of it, if we want solutions, and we want solutions for these problems, then we have to revert back to this process. Okay. Now, here's the exercise. And we're going to have breakaway groups. Make some groups of 3, 4, 5 people, ladies also. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a discussion among ourselves in these groups. And first of all, let's discuss what's the big picture of this diagram. What's the overall big theme we're seeing here? Okay, that's number one. So somebody you can write down these 3 questions. This is the exercise, so we know what we're doing here. So what is the big picture presented here? Question number 1. Question number 2, identify the parts of the tree. That doesn't seem to be very difficult, but it's significant because different parts of the tree have different functions. Okay, so we need to identify what are the main parts of the tree, which are mentioned here. There's a lot of other components that are not mentioned here. But whatever we see here on the diagram, we're going to be working with what we see here, not something else, okay? Whatever words we see here, whatever graphic we have here, we're going to be working with that, okay? And then thirdly, which is the most important question, that is, how did this tree bear fruit? Right? We see all of these fruits. So how did this tree bear fruit? What was the process? Use the information provided in the images. Okay, as I said, so there's a lot of things you can talk about trees, the more but we're not interested in all of that at this point in time. We just want to focus on what we have right there in front of us, right? The words that we have here, the shekel that we have here, we're working with that, okay? Okay, what I'm going to do, you written down the questions? So I'm going to go back, or I'll just leave it right here. So you've got that ayat on the top, and then the second ayat we have on the bottom. And you can make your groups, and we'll give you, it's now 3:30, so we'll give you, how much? 10 minutes? Okay. 10 minutes to discuss that and then present. Then we're going to listen to a few groups from the men and the ladies. What were your findings? Okay? Got it? Okay, bismillah. So you can probably just, 4 or 5 of you can spread out, different areas and then have your discussion. And then one of you will come from each group and present your findings. Okay? Okay. As many, 4 or 5, 6.
This is yours. Should I get a glass?
Huh?
Should I get a glass for you?
What's that?
Should I get a glass or something?
That might not be a bad idea because I'm not going to finish that.
Oh, that's fine. It's yours. It's okay. I'll finish it if you don't. Basically, and everything around that is. Can I get you some snacks or something quickly? Can I get you something to eat quickly?
No.
Okay.
The last thing I need is to eat. I don't want to see food for that.
So Asa will be at 4 o'clock inshallah.
Okay.
And then we'll do the Q&A. Or if you want to, you can continue. I think it's fine to continue.
Yeah. We can do some bigger exercise.
Can I have your
Second.
Okay. Sure. Some pizza.
Is there going to be like a refreshment or something?
Pizza. I was planning on doing it after Asr. So, however you suggest. Maybe it'll be here in like 10 minutes, the food, 10-15 minutes. So maybe we give them, if you we give them 15 minutes.
We'll do a little bigger session and then we'll have refreshments.
So basically, I think there's the first part represents that.
picture. That's mine. The bottom words, I don't know. They put them so maybe that's. I guess you would alter those things.
So I guess the next question is what are the parts of the tree? So you have the trunk, you have the branches, right? And then you have the idea.
Like this.
The way we deal with each other is the yellow, the green, the yellow, and then the red, the blue area.
So this is a color code.
I think they're saying the way the Ubudiyyah grows is through those things.
I guess
But for the Ubudiyyah, we're going we would have proper the ability to properly follow our five pillars. That's one branch, one branch of that, and any of the other mu'amalat, we will be honest in our dealing with family, with neighbors, and also in the sense of from there, the amal we could branch out all the
Probably the roots, and that's it's actually there, but we need education for the raise our kids. And then
down to the stomach. Nature has to be aligned with the song. Or you can say you're basically developing. That's what it's called. Yeah, now we do it so we say we're there to ensemble art. Everything.
There's probably a reason why it's all like it goes up, right? So like maybe like something like your adab yeah, so that's like one level, and then brings you up to akhlaq and your mu'amalat.
But then adab and akhlaq are almost synonymous, overlapping.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the bigger society in the background?
Yes, so that's like more societal.
That's a society thing. Because we live in a larger society also. That should be captured here. As Muslim, we face that pressure all the time, right? We have to comply with American lifestyle and all. The pulls and the push, modern lifestyle.
This is all ibadah. This is all ibadah. The green color is ibadah.
how we carry ourselves. And then
These are fruits, yeah. Because of this you will get
revelation of those manners
because
That's more of a personal
benefit.
adab is kind of with the people.
It's just how we carry ourselves.
The peace.
Let's say a word.
interaction. And then the other one's mu'amalat, also interaction. Mu'ashara and there's a lot of Arabic words that are which
मजबूत किया अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से शुरू में जंग की तरफ नहीं लोग जंग लड़ना करना चाहते थे गुजारा करने से अल्लाह हुक्म लेकिन नहीं ताकि जुल्म होगा मुसलमानों को रगड़ा लेकिन क्योंकि वो टाइम नहीं था इस पर तदबीर थी ना तदबीर बिकॉज अगर फाइट करते
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, so we've completed our, who's ready to present? Let's have one or two. Elson, you're ready. You ready? Okay, come here and take the mic and let's hear what you have to say.
So this is a tree, right? It explains the core aspects of Islam, which are like talim, dawa, and tarbiyah. If we do ibadah, we'll...
Okay, the big picture, like just an overall theme, what would that be?
So this is the way of Islam, right?
The way of Islam.
Yeah.
Okay.
How we should. This is a way to follow the Islam, like how we spend our life, what we need to do.
Okay. And the parts of the tree?
Parts of the tree are adab, ikhlaq, ibadah.
No. Parts of a tree. Tree has parts, right? What are the parts? Roots?
Yeah.
What else? Trunk?
Branches.
Branches?
Fruits.
Fruit. Those are the 4 parts that we have.
Right.
Because each part has a particular function. We're going to see that, inshallah. Okay. Now, how did it produce the fruit?
So if we do certain actions, suppose if we do ibadah, that is umrah, hajj, sadaqah, zakah, these are the fruits.
Okay, but how did these fruits ultimately manifest? What was the process involved that ultimately culminated in these fruits? You follow my point?
Yeah.
Does a tree just all of a sudden have fruit, or there's a process that goes on?
There's a process.
What would that be?
That's adab, ikhlaq, ibadah, muamalat.
Those
that's
things that happened before that, right?
Start with
To have a tree, to plant a tree and have a tree.
First you gotta plant it, yeah, that's true. But let's start with what we have here.
Talim, dawa.
So now the tree has grown and it's up and running, but there's still a process that's taking place. It's a living process, right?
Right.
So how is it, what is this process from beginning to the end?
It's continuous in that nurture.
Okay, great, that's wonderful.
thank you.
Who wants to complete that one? You want to come and complete? Yeah, come on.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
So I think over here, I mean, these could be the roots, right?
Yeah, they are.
Trees, you know, they need things to grow, like water, nutrients, whatever. These, I mean, in my head, I thought those symbolize the nutrients that allow the
Exactly.
tree to grow.
For sure.
And with those core principles in mind, they can be manifested into these different sections of the trees.
Yeah, so actually the roots are taking in the nutrients. You got these three macronutrients. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Now we've got this fikr, marifa, iman. Do we understand those terms? Fikr, thinking, and then marifa, some awareness, some understanding. And then iman, then yaqeen. So are these just kind of randomly, or is there a sequence there, do you think?
No, there probably is a sequence there, like you said. When you have those things in mind, maybe the sequence leads into those like different principles of the trees.
You know, what about these things themselves? Is that a sequence?
Like from
Fikr,
these-
from fikr on up.
Fikr. Yeah, you're right. I think so. I mean, fikr, you know, and well, maybe I need to brush up on these terms myself. But I'm assuming that these sequence of actions, I was like, oh, I'm gonna fikr. I'm gonna like think about this, and then this leads into action. This leads into, you know,
Leads to the next, one leads to the next.
yeah.
And then ultimately it goes into the branches, and then you get this, then this. Wonderful, great. Since we don't have a whole lot of time before Asr, can we have the ladies, one of the ladies present what you came up with? Let's hear one of the groups of the ladies. Wa alaikum salam. You have to speak up a little bit, okay? Sorry, we can't hear.
Can you hear?
Yeah, that's good. Mhm. Okay, the big picture, what's the big picture that we're seeing here?
The picture of life and how to live our Muslim life and how to
Big picture is life.
What's that?
The big picture is life.
Big picture is life. Ah, okay. And the parts of the tree, would you, if you agree with what I was already said, then like the four parts of the tree, would you agree with that? Okay. So now let's hear about the process.
having strong roots and continuing to nourish yourself.
Kindly speak up a little bit.
Having strong roots and continuing to nourish yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then what happens? The roots are being nourished. What is the nourishment of the roots?
It continues to education.
Taaleem, dawat, tarbiyah. Yeah? Okay. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it.
Okay, Jazakumullah khair. Wonderful. Okay, so shortness of time, so I'll just give a little bit of explanation here, according to my limited understanding. Okay, first of all, we have the roots. Everybody understands that trees, we know that much about biology, though we're not biology majors. I think we know that all trees and plants are absorbing nutrients and ghidai and nourishment from the roots. And it's interesting that trees, plants, need three macronutrients. Do you know what they are? Where's our biology major? Huh? Nitrogen? No.
Oxygen.
Nitrogen? Right?
Phosphorus.
Huh?
Carbon.
Phosphorus? And? What?
Carbon dioxide.
Huh?
Carbon dioxide?
No, they give off carbon dioxide.
Oxygen.
Huh?
Oxygen.
Nitrogen,
Hydrogen.
phosphorus, and the other one was P. There's another one.
Light.
Huh?
Light.
No, I used to know that. It's not coming to my mind. Anyway, there's 3 macronutrients. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Okay, 3 macronutrients. Now, interestingly, human beings also have 3 macronutrients. What are they? Carbohydrates?
Carbon, right? Carbon?
No, not carbon. Carbohydrates, protein, and fat.
Liquid fat.
Yeah, that one seems to be a hard thing for people to... No, you need these 3. So human beings have 3, and also these trees have that. And this particular tree has 3 macronutrients. Micronutrients, all your minerals and vitamins, that's a more complicated thing. But the macro. So this tree also has macronutrients. Dawat, tarbiyah, ta'lim. Or tazkiyah, tarbiyah, tazkiyah. Okay, now, prophets, when they begin their invitation to humanity, what do they start with? Among these 3. Dawat, ta'lim, tarbiyah, what? Dawat. Because dawat is a wake-up. Dawat is to wake up, you know? Now, once somebody's woken up, what happens is a wake-up call. Imam Ghazali, rahmah, he calls it the tanabbuh. You know, when you wake up out of your sleep and, oh, might have been in a dream or a nightmare, and then, oh, reality. So when you hear the dawat, when the dawat of Rusul comes to a person whose heart and mind is acceptable, has the capacity to accept that, so there's a kind of a wake-up. So that produces what? Fikr. So now we start having fikr. Fikr means we start thinking, oh, yeah, there is a creation, must be a creator, and he created for me a purpose to serve him, and then there's going to be accountability, and so he starts thinking. And if he starts thinking and he starts pondering over that, he starts to understand a bit about, much can be understood about the qualities of the Creator just by pondering over the creation. If you look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's system, would you not come to the conclusion that He is Qadir? He has Qudra? Would you not come to the conclusion that He is all-knowing, Alim, Alim? That He's all-present, all-powerful? So, as this dawat starts, we start thinking. And we come to some kind of understanding. And that as the dawat continues, and ta'aleem and tarbiyah continues, so it grows. Just as the tree grows. It turns into iman. There's a conviction. Then that iman keeps growing and becomes certainty, yaqeen. Then what happens is, then ultimately ikhlas comes out of that. You know, ikhlas is a very, very, amazing thing, but a difficult concept to realize. Doing something for the sake of Allah, purely and solely, it's not an easy thing to do. You can't just, turn on the switch, all of a sudden I'm going to be mukhlis, or you hear a little presentation, or you hear a little, okay, I'm going to be mukhlis illah. My Sheikh in Medina, I asked him, Sheikh, how do we get ikhlas? He said, you better ask somebody who has it. Nobody can, claim. Can we claim that I did this only, this always gets me, I did this only for the sake of Allah. How do you know? There was no little iota of maybe something. So it's a very difficult thing. So it requires, it's a branch of iman. It's kind of the fruit of the fruit. So it is an imani quality which we have to struggle for. That's why, in Tabligh they have this thing called tashiyyah niyat. Now, they don't say something ikhlas, no, actually it's tashiyyah niyat, because you're trying to correct your intention, because our intention is always needs to be corrected and purified. Okay, now we come to nasiha. Nasiha, basically in Arabic we say iradat al-khair lil-mansuhi lahu. The intention of good to the person that we're advising. Giving admonition to people, but there's a difference between a nasiha with ta'yir. You should do this, you're doing, that's not admonition, that's not a nasiha. That's a gross, critical debasement. That's not, we're not supposed to be doing that. But nasiha, when will we be sincere to the creation of Allah? When we learn sincerity to the Creator. This always gets me. No, the main thing is, being good to people. That's all that matters. Well, why would you be good to people when you're not even recognizing the people's Creator? If you're not good to the Creator, then could you actually be good to His creation? Well, maybe in good times. When the times get rough, it won't last, right? So the reason why we Muslims are good to the creation and we're kind to people and we're generous and is because Allah wants us to do that. Not simply it feels good or I like it or people say it's a good thing to do. No, it has a much higher intention. Okay, then you see Sharia. So why is Sharia all the way up there? Shouldn't it be down there? Well, if you look at Sirah, when did Sharia, the rules and regulations, particularly the prohibitions and all these tough rules, when did they come? They came in Makkah? What Sharia came in Makkah? Aqidah came in Makkah. Iman came in Makkah. Salat came in Makkah. That's it. All this other Sharia came when? In Medina. This process, dawah, ta'lim, tarbiyah, dawah, this tree is growing. Then people are ready to actually implement Sharia, that's when it comes. Allah knows best. Prohibition, case in point. We had back in this country, I don't know if you know this history, back in the 1920s, we had what they called the prohibition. I mean, they got it right. The government of the United States believed, this is hard to believe, but it's true. The government understood, they realized that alcohol is detrimental and we need to prohibit it. And so they did. They passed legislation to ban alcohol. Can you believe that? Well, was all this process of dawah and tarbiyah in place? Or they just passed a law? So do you change people's character or behavior by passing laws? This is the paradox. It always gets me, people, these mass murders. Do you know that we have these mass shootings, more than one a day? More than one on an average, because there's more mass shootings in the course of a year here in America than the number of days in the year. We only hear about the big ones. There's a lot of them we don't hear about. But that's true. That's just see it. Why? So what do we come up with? Okay, let's have tougher gun laws. And we think that's going to solve the problem? We have tough laws on heroin also, right? Did that solve the heroin problem? Fentanyl, we have tough laws on that too. Did that solve the problem? This is getting worse. You're not going to change people's character behavior by passing a law. You need to have da'wat, tarbiyah, ta'aleem to prepare the minds and the hearts. The same prohibition was also enacted in Medina Munawwara. How did it work, folks? Oh, by the way, you've all heard of the mafia, right? You know where that started? The mafia that wasn't really a thing. It started during the Prohibition era, because when they passed the laws prohibiting alcohol, so these Italian families, they were good at making homemade liquor, so they said, okay, we can do this, we can solve this problem. So they started making liquor and selling it to their customers, and their customer base would increase, and then one family's client base would overlap another one, and then you had a war. And all the streets of this country, the main cities of this country, they were war zones, literally. I don't know if you've seen in Hollywood, they made a lot of money off of that too. We got all these Al Capone movies and all that. Yeah, it was real. The streets of America were flowing with blood from these gang wars, these mafia wars. As a result of this correct legislation incorrectly applied. So it's not about just passing laws, it's how do you prepare the people to accept the laws. Now the same law was passed in Medina after a period of time, and also with tadrij. First of all, that, there's an inference that you are making from this wine and from the dates and from the grapes a sakaran wa rizqan hasana. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that you make intoxicants and you also make a good sustenance. oh, there's a good and there's a toxin. Maybe toxin is not good. So some of the Sahaba, they actually understood, oh, it's not good, so maybe we're going to stop it now. Few of them. But there still wasn't any prohibition. Then there was an incident in Salat, and so then the prohibition came, La taqrabu salata from sukara. Okay, if you're going to have a party, don't make your Salat al-Isha while you're intoxicated. Sober up, and then have your Salat. Then finally there was a more horrific incident. I don't have time for that. And then the total prohibition came. When that prohibition came in Medina, the person who heard that prohibition, he had wine in his mouth, he spit it up. By the way, wine in Arab culture was like tea and coffee in our culture. They start the morning with sabur. We start with our coffee. They would start with the sabur. They had names for the different times of the day, the different names of the wine for the different. It was like all day long they're drinking wine. The shuhada of Uhud, they used to have, particularly when they would go into the battle, they'd have a little preliminary warm-up. They used to do that, until the prohibition came. So when that prohibition did come, they were prepared. The minds and their hearts were prepared. We're going to follow. Deen, what is deen? Submission. So, who had it in his mouth, he spit it out in his hand, he threw it. The people had big, containers of wine that they made, and it was very valuable. They threw it into the streets. There was a caravan coming from Syria. It was all wine. And somebody came, hey, it's prohibited now. You can't have that. The fellow took out his dagger and just stabbed all the holes. And, if it was us, we'd go, and Mufti Sahib, come on. What do we do here, All my money, my capital, they don't think like that. This is the order of Allah, follow it. This is an opportunity. So the same legislature, but look at the huge, juxtapositioning of the result. Why? Because dawat, tarbiyah, ta'aleem. So as we have dawat, tarbiyah, and ta'aleem, this tree is growing, and all of these fruits ultimately culminate in our character, in our muasharat, our muamalat. Yeah. So all of our activities, including our ibadat and all of these things. So there's a little bit more I wanted to discuss about that. So since it's time for salat now, we'll have our salat. And right after salat, we'll just finish this section, then we're going to have a little break, and then we'll have a dhikr session, inshallah, after that, okay? Subhanakallah wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
I'll